What's up, movie fans? I'm finally here to review Last Night in Soho. I do apologize for the review being late, but I had to see this a second time because I didn't understand the movie. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. And I think I got a pretty good hang of it. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I'm a very big Anya Taylor-Joy fan, so I hate doing this review because I have nothing really nice to say about it. This is a spoiler-filled review. I ruin everything about the movie. But before I get into that, let me tell you the positives I have for the movie. Edgar Wright has a very good eye for beautiful, stunning imagery. The cinematography in this was top-notch professional stuff. The color grading was professional. I mean, it was one of the most beautiful movies I've seen all year besides The Green Knight. It's definitely taken second place. The acting. Had no problems with any of the acting whatsoever. I didn't feel like I didn't believe what they were selling on screen. No problems with the set design. The set design was probably the best part of the whole movie. It was beautiful scenery, really awesome old school 60s look. Wardrobe was great. It helped you immerse yourself and feel like, hey, I'm in the 60s. It gave you that depth where you are and what time it is that you're experiencing and watching. Except for the screenplay and the script. That's where it just falls on its face. And I think a lot of that has to do with Edgar Wright bringing on a brand new female writer. This was her first film she did, and her name is Krysty Wilson Cairns. And I think he wrote the first half and she wrote the second half. Because the first half of this movie is breathtaking, superb, engaging, entertaining, everything you'd think it was in the trailers. The second half is just a terrible, shit-filled diaper. Felt like someone opened a baby's diaper and then flung it into your face, and then you were like, ah, ah, and you have crap in your eyes, and you're throwing up. That's how bad the second half was. It was just a mess. So the movie starts off kind of implying that this girl can see dead people. She sees her mom in the mirror. She gets a letter in the mail saying, hey, we accept you to do fashion in London. She gets very excited about that. Her dream is to be a fashion designer in London. She takes off, and then the first thing we're introduced to is a creepy cab driver. Yeah, hey, baby. So he asks her, what are you here for? She's like, oh, I'm here for fashion. Ah, yeah, model, aren't ya? And with those legs, I can see that. And she starts covering herself up, and he's like, so, baby, what are you off to tonight? What you up to? Great way to start it off. Let's just have her run into a creep right off the bat, huh? After the cab thing, she runs into a ton of people in the city. But she meets with her roommate, and her roommate's a complete bitch to her. All the time. Very rude, condescending, talks down to her, belittles her, and she bullies her to death and mocks her as a person. And what bothers me about the lead actress, McKenzie, is she's kind of a pushover. I'm here to be a fashion designer. I'm here to do fashion. And that's how she is, and that's how she talks, and it gets very exhausting after a while because you're trying to like root for her because she's just always like mopey and down, always talking like this, and I want to do fashion, and I don't drink or party or like boys, or I don't want to do anything fun in life. I just want to see beautiful things all the time, and if there's any sort of reality to real life, like drama or drugs or fighting or disrespect or bullying, I just get rattled because I'm a sheltered child. And this happens through the whole film, and it really wears on you after a while. So we run into Anya Taylor-Joy within 30 minutes of the film. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, this, I like her, here we go, this is gonna get good now. It doesn't. The first thing Edgar Wright wanted to do was bring a perv, and he's like, hey baby, never seen you in this club before. Can I steal you for a dance? Afraid not, I'm here to see the owner. Complete smug little bitch. And then she moves on to somebody else. She talks to the bartender, and she's like, who's in charge? Is the owner here tonight? Like, just this cocky fucking attitude. And I don't know if that's what Edgar Wright was going for. It was too fast, and he didn't really imply much before this. You kind of just had to accept, okay, this is how she treats people. You're thrown into that. She meets with Matt Smith, they dance, and then you're kind of seeing a back and forth. When he's spinning her, you see Anya Taylor-Joy, then you see McKenzie. I really liked these transitions. When she was going down the stairs, you saw Anya Taylor-Joy walking down the stairs, but in the back, you saw McKenzie in the mirror. These transitions that Edgar Wright thought of were very genius, and they were very cool because this girl is going back into the past. So all that stuff was great. And then she goes to buy a white coat. The coat lady is a complete bitch. She's like, It's 394 pounds for this coat. She's like, 394? 394! Was that necessary? Why does everyone have to treat this girl like garbage? I don't really know. Moving on, she meets this guy that's really obsessed with her, and he does pretty much everything for her. He's a big pushover. I'm going to skip forward a little bit because there's too much to cover. And they go to have sex, and she's having one of her flashbacks. She's starting to see a lot of dead people that are like crying at her, and they're dead men. And I'll get to that in a minute. Basically, she can see Anya Taylor-Joy because she falls asleep in this room every night. She starts freaking out. And then the owner mentioned earlier in the movie, no boys allowed in the house. So then she starts screaming. Obviously, the old woman that's renting the room to her hears this, comes upstairs, starts banging on the door. And he freaks out. He's trying to put his pants on, and he hits a mirror, and glass gets all over the place, and he steps on it. And she's like, no boys in the house. And the old woman's banging on the door, and he freaks out. He runs off, and she's like, get out. Get out! And then the old woman goes to McKenzie and she's like, we'll talk about this in the morning. I would never talk to this girl again because I think she has some mental problems. But he keeps insisting on trying to get to know her even after this happened. So she leaves a restaurant and there's this old man that had no purpose in the movie. And he goes, hey girl, I'm not trying to hit on you or pick you up, girl. She's like, yeah, I'm here for fashion. He's like, fashion? She's like, yeah, man, I'm doing it for my dead mom. He's like, I figured your mom was dead. She turns around and walks away from him like, okay. She almost gets hit by a car. The car honks at her and he goes, watch where you're going, girl. He had no point in this movie. So fast forwarding, the guy that's obsessed with her tries to hang out with her again. So she's in the library trying to figure something out that I'm about to get into. And she literally has a nervous breakdown because she keeps seeing these ghosts. And these ghosts in this movie, they just hound you with them. They just keep punching you in the face and just throwing it at you saying, do you see these ghosts? Do you see them? And Edgar Wright's like, do you see the ghosts, man? These are in her mind, in her subconscious. Isn't this scary? And it's like, no, it's annoying because you just hound me with them and you keep prying them into my face. She's in the library trying to figure something out that I'm about to get into. And she has a nervous breakdown again and it's like, okay, I'm sick of these ghosts. She picks up a pair of scissors and goes to stab someone in the face. And her friend, the black guy is obsessed with her, grabs the scissors. And then you see that she was about to stab her old roommate that was mean to her. And she goes, what the fuck? And then runs off to go get the police. And he's like, Melissa, no, I'll be right back. And then the girl has a breakdown and runs off. But then when she's running off, you run into a ton of more ghost stuff. So this leads me to the last part of the movie, which is where it went downhill so bad I clocked out, zoned out, and I lost all respect for the film. The kid that just stopped her from stabbing her old roommate meets up with her later because there's a fire. She runs to a phone booth, runs into her friend. I need to get out of London. He's like, I'll drive you there. Don't you have a life? This girl had a nervous breakdown. You stepped on glass because of her. She just tried to stab her friend and you want to drive with her alone to take her home? You have nothing better to do. You don't have a job. You don't have homework to do. You don't have studying to do. You don't have class the next day. You're just going to drop it all for this crazy bitch that keeps having these nervous breakdowns that just tried to kill somebody. Yep. Now you ready for this crash dive? This is some Titanic sinking level shit here I'm about to tell you. You find out when she gets back home that the old woman she's renting a room from is Sandy, is the dead girl that she keeps seeing in her dreams. And she's explaining to the lead actress that she's Sandy and that she killed 100 men. And how she did it is she put them under the floors in her house. And they show a floorboard just closed with a dead body under it. And what's disgusting about this part, it was Edgar Wright's laziness that he didn't even bother to do research on this, or he straight up just did not care about the logic with this. When the main actress rented the house at the beginning, the first thing the old woman said before she closed the door to her room said, I hope you like the smell of garlic. There's a place that makes garlic next door. It's all you're gonna smell anymore. They're implying that the smell of that garlic is completely overshadowing the 100 decaying dead bodies into this house. That is some lazy writing. Edgar Wright did no research on that and obviously does not comprehend, or he did not care, that even one dead body, it would soak into the walls. You would smell the carcass of the body. The body releases so many toxins when it dies and shuts down and decays over time. 100 bodies would reek about 2 blocks or more. That's how far that smell would travel. But he wants to say, oh yeah, no, garlic will hide all of it. If you're going to try and tell me that the garlic is going to hide the scent of 100 dead bodies, we're going to have a lot more dead people in this world, if that's all it takes. So the kid that's waiting for her in the car comes into the house, and the old woman's going crazy. She was giving the girl tea as she was explaining this to her, and she starts to, it's that cliche, like, drink your tea, and then they get all dizzy. She's telling her she's going to kill her, and you find out the old woman is Sandy, Anya Taylor-Joy's character. As the black kid comes into the house, the old woman stabs him with a knife. So she's trying to kill them, right? And then eventually the house starts on fire, and the old woman goes upstairs, and she can see all the ghosts. She killed all those men that used her for sex from the club. They implied that Matt Smith was pimping her out, which I'm going to get into after this, and that will be my last thing to cover. So she sees all these dead men upstairs, talking to the lead actress, saying, "Avenge us! Avenge us! Save us!" And the old woman's like, "I've lived in hell far too long." And then she goes to slit her own throat. It kills her. The house is on fire. The lead actress and the black guy get out. And then it shows a fashion show in the end, right? At the fashion show, she goes up to a mirror, and she sees Sandy, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, the old woman, in a mirror. And she smiles at the mirror, and then goes up to it, and then Anya Taylor-Joy goes, and then blinks, and then they do a boop moment together in the mirror. Like they're friends now. She goes up to the mirror, and they go, "What? Didn't this old woman just try killing you? And she stabbed your friend? She just told you she killed 100 men and hid them in her house. And now you're friends with her? What?" The lead actress, McKenzie, can see ghosts, right? But they never mention, like, how she goes into the past. But she can see dead people. So my big question to Edgar Wright would be, at a panel, how does she see Sandy when she's still alive? It's a very big plot hole. The movie is convoluted and a mess. And that's what the old man mentioned. Tell Sandy she was a whore. They mentioned that he was a cop, so how would he not know that she's not alive? That's another loophole in the film. And this brings me to my last thing I want to mention, and then I'll do my closer. I don't understand this movie's message, because Sandy got a job at this dance place. Matt Smith got her a job. That was the whole point of them meeting up. He helps her get a job. She's a dancer at the club. But then they imply he's pimping her out, having clients have sex with her, and that's why they come to their club. They basically just prostitute the women that play at their shows. But what doesn't make sense to me is she was never tied down. They were never making her do drugs. They were never forcing drugs into her. She chose to show up there every night. She had her own place. They didn't have her locked up in a basement, chained down, and she kept going there. It was a decision she made, and then she killed all the men because she was angry about it. But then there's a small part where it shows money on the table. That implies they're paying her for sex. So either she's giving that money to Matt Smith, which they don't show, or she's keeping that money. So basically she's a prostitute at this point. She continues to go to this club every night. When she ends up killing all these 100 men, is the message saying, hey, you're allowed to kill men that give you money? Or is the message, I understand why you killed these men because they had sex with you because you chose to go to a club and do this to yourself. So you have every right to kill them. It's like justifying her actions. Then in the ending, all the ghosts are saying, avenge us, save us, kill her, implying that she's a bad person and that they need to kill her to avenge them because they did nothing wrong. In reality, they really didn't. They didn't rape her. They didn't drug her. They didn't hold her down. She was never tied down. They just said, hey, you want to have sex with me? I'll give you some money. She happily accepted, took them home every night, and then she murdered all of them. And then they're like, avenge us. Am I supposed to feel bad for her or feel bad for the dead men? Like the men chose to go to the club to pay for sex, and then she chose to let them pay for the sex and had sex with them and then murder them. There's no resolution to this. Here is my 2 cents on this. After I saw this for the second time, I thought about this really hard for an hour. I think he was saying that nostalgia isn't always what it's built up to be in your mind. Like we have this vision in our heads, these goggles on, this mindset of, oh, this is going to be beautiful. The lead actress, her dream was to be a fashion designer in London, right? She kept thinking about it. She was so excited to go to London. And then the first thing that happens to her in there She gets hit on by a creep. The coat check girl treats her like garbage. There's a creepy old man that follows her around. Then she lives with a murderer. And then the girls, her roommates, are rude to her. So I think it was saying that we try to build things up in our minds that seem special to us, and they're really not that special. Nostalgia isn't as great as we want it to be, and it always ends up being very disappointing for us in the end. That's what I think his message was. That's what I think Edgar Wright was trying to do, but then he allowed the second writer in there to write the second half for him, and she riddled the movie with plot holes. The dots didn't line up. They were just everywhere. The first half, the dots were lined up. So I think he helmed the first half, she helmed the second, and I think his message was nostalgia. So after that conclusion, I'm going to grade Last Night in Soho a C-. So it was a very big letdown, guys, and I'm hoping that maybe my review will give you some insight of stuff maybe you didn't understand. I don't think you'll enjoy it. I think the second half is so awful that it's just going to leave a bad taste in your mouth, and you'll hate the whole movie like I did because of the second half being so bad. Sorry for the disappointing review. Like I said, I was really rooting for Edgar Wright on this because I love Anya Taylor-Joy, and this was definitely a bad apple that I can't recommend. So that's my review on Last Night in Soho, guys. I really appreciate you watching. I have a lot more reviews coming up for you, so if you want to know what they are, hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you movie fans on my next review.